my success rate was reasonably high. I mean, everything worked, and we were understanding the concepts, or starting to. Basically, there was an air ride shop in town, and he had just got going, and I.
They finally opened Aaron Kaufman's garage, and what was inside has left people who thought they knew him stunned. For years, fans of Fast and Loud knew Aaron Kaufman as the quiet engineering mind behind the builds, but after he stepped away from the spotlight, questions about what he was working on never really stopped. So when the doors to his garage were finally opened, what people saw raised more questions than answers. What has Aaron Kaufman really been building in private? And why is what was found causing so much surprise? Join us as we uncover what was discovered inside Aaron Kaufman's garage and why it's shocking everyone. The man everyone thought they knew. Long before fans actually started debating why Aaron Kaufman left Gas Monkey Garage, most people knew him as the easiest person one would want to root for on Fast and Loud. While Richard Rawlings was the salesman, the promoter, and the risk-taker, Aaron was the builder. When Richard bought a vehicle that looked beyond saving, Aaron was usually the person expected to figure out how to make it work somehow. The dynamic became one of the reasons the show exploded in popularity. To viewers, he seemed almost perfectly suited to the role he filled. He was calm when everyone else was stressed, and he rarely ever chased attention. While others talked, he worked. And in a television industry built around big personalities, that made him stand out even more. But there was something many fans overlooked. Aaron was never someone who entered the automotive world just because he wanted television fame. In fact, the things that interested him the most had very little to do with television at all. Before Fast and Loud, he had spent years teaching himself fabrication techniques, working with metal, studying vehicle design, and developing the skills that would eventually make him one of the most respected builders in the industry. Cars were never just entertainment to him. For a television show, a vehicle only needs to look impressive when the cameras stop rolling. For a fabricator, the vehicle has to really work. The engineering needs to make sense, with shortcuts having dire consequences. Looking back now, many fans see moments from Fast and Loud differently than they did when the show first aired. What looked like frustration over a deadline was sometimes exactly that. What looked like irritation over a rushed project may have reflected a deeper disagreement about how things should be done. The cameras only showed the successes, completed projects, celebrations, and growing fame. What they could not fully show was the growing gap between the work Aaron loved and the reality of producing television on a strict schedule. As years passed by, that gap remained thin, but eventually, it became impossible to ignore. When Aaron finally reached that breaking point, he made a decision that shocked fans and changed the direction of his entire career. So, what was really happening behind the scenes that made one of Fast and Loud's most recognizable faces decide it was finally time to walk away? The pressure hidden behind the builds. By the time Fast and Loud became one of Discovery's biggest automotive shows, Aaron Kaufman had already become one of its most popular faces. From an outsider's point of view, it looked like he was living the dream. The show was a big hit. Gas Monkey Garage had become a household name among car enthusiasts. Fans admired his craftsmanship, respected his knowledge, and viewed him as the person who made the entire operation work. But success has a way of hiding the problems that come with it. One of the realities of automotive television is that viewers only tend to see the finished product. They see the reveal and celebration of the successful project. What they don't see is the pressure it took to get there. Over time, Aaron began speaking more openly about the frustrations that came with constantly rushing projects to meet filming schedules and expectations. In later interviews, He explained that many of the builds he was most interested in required far more time and attention than television production allowed, and that eventually created a growing conflict. The things that made a great television show were not always the things that made a great build. Viewers, as always, wanted dramatic transformations. Producers needed episodes completed, and his deadlines constantly kept moving closer. Meanwhile, Aaron was the person expected to deliver results. The pressure was not coming from one project. It was coming from years of projects stacked on top of each other. Looking back now, some fans have noticed moments where the strain on him was visible. There were episodes where he appeared exhausted, others where his frustration seemed more noticeable than usual. At the time, many viewers simply assumed that was part of the job. And in a way, it was. But the only difference was that Aaron genuinely cared about the quality of the work he delivered. He wasn't building cars simply because they made good television or impressed fans. He was building them because he loved the craft itself. That passion had helped make him successful. But ironically, it was also becoming the source of his frustration. The more experience he gained, the more ambitious his interests became. He wanted to tackle even larger challenges like more complex projects, different types of vehicles, and newer forms of racing. But television shows reward consistency. Years later, he admitted that he had reached a point where he no longer felt eager to do the same thing over and over again. The work was still good. The audience was still there and expecting more. But the excitement that had once driven him was already fading rapidly. And once that happened, a difficult question began following him everywhere. If this was supposed to be his dream job, why was he starting to feel like it was holding him back? The answer to that question would eventually lead to one of the biggest departures in Fast and Loud history. The unexpected that happened. When Aaron Kaufman announced he was leaving Gas Monkey Garage, many fans assumed there had to be some kind of major falling out behind the scenes. After all, people do not usually walk away from a hit television show at the height of its popularity. From the audience's perspective, nothing seemed wrong. If anything, it looked like he had more opportunities than ever before, which is why his departure caught so many people off guard. The speculation started almost immediately. Some fans believed there had been an argument with Richard Rawlings. Others thought money was involved. A few even wondered whether Discovery had pushed him out. In interviews after his departure, Aaron explained that the decision had been building for years. He wasn't leaving because one specific event happened. He was leaving because he had gradually realized that the life he wanted was moving in a different direction from the one he was living. He later described becoming frustrated by the limitations that came with television production and the types of projects he was expected to focus on. The show that had made him famous was also preventing him from pursuing some of the challenges that interested him most. By then, he was becoming increasingly fascinated by projects that required more time, more experimentation, and more risk. He wanted to build vehicles that did not necessarily fit the Fast and Loud formula, and that desire kept growing. Eventually, staying became harder than leaving. Years later, people still debate whether Fast and Loud was ever quite the same after Aaron's exit. What makes the story interesting is that there was no dramatic public war between the two men. No months-long feud played out on social media to raise dust. Instead, Aaron simply left. And in many ways, that decision reflected his personality perfectly. While others might have stayed for the paycheck, the fame, or the comfort of a successful routine, he chose uncertainty. He walked away from a nationally recognized television platform without any guarantee that what came next would be bigger or more successful. For him, the bigger risk would have been staying somewhere that no longer challenged him. The surprising part is what happened after he left. Many fans expected him to disappear from the spotlight altogether. Some assumed he would quietly return to fabrication work and leave television behind forever. Instead, he did something that completely changed the conversation. For the first time in years, he got the chance to build exactly what he wanted. And when the doors of his own shop finally opened, fans began seeing a side of Aaron Kaufman that Fast and Loud had never fully revealed. What he built outside the show. Leaving Gas Monkey Garage gave Aaron Kaufman something he had not had in a very long time. That was his freedom, not the kind that comes from having no responsibilities. The kind that comes from finally being able to choose which challenges are worth your time. For years, viewers had watched him build vehicles under the structure of a television show. There were deadlines, budgets, production schedules, and expectations. Even when the work was impressive, it was still happening inside a framework designed for entertainment. And almost immediately, his interests became much clearer. In 2017, he launched ArcLight Fabrication in Texas, a shop built around something he had been passionate about for years: classic Ford trucks. To casual fans, that might not have sounded particularly exciting. After all, Aaron had worked on countless vehicles throughout his career. But to people who paid close attention, it revealed something important. This was a business created around an obsession. The shop focused heavily on Ford F-100 trucks from the late 1950s through the 1970s, a platform Aaron had admired for years. Instead of chasing whatever vehicle happened to be popular at the moment, he chose to build a company around something he genuinely loved. That decision pointed a lot about him. Many people leave successful careers hoping to discover a new passion. Aaron already knew what he was. The goal was to simply create an environment where he could pursue it without compromise. The projects coming out of ArcLight reflected that mindset. The shop developed suspension systems, chassis components, engine swap solutions, and custom parts specifically designed for older Ford trucks. These were not flashy television builds intended to generate headlines. They were practical solutions for people who cared about making these trucks better. In a strange way, the work was less glamorous than what viewers had seen on Fast and Loud. It was also by far more personal. Aaron was solving problems because he wanted them solved. Around the same time, viewers got another glimpse into his world through Shifting Gears with Aaron Kaufman. Unlike Fast and Loud, the show focused heavily on unfamiliar challenges and ambitious projects that pushed both him and his team outside their comfort zones. They built rally cars, race trucks, off-road machines, vehicles designed for competitions they had never entered before. And that pattern revealed something that fans were beginning to understand. Aaron was not interested in mastering one thing and repeating it forever. He was more interested in learning. Again and again, he chose projects where failure was a real possibility. Projects that forced him to develop new skills and rethink old assumptions. The garage fans imagined would be filled with trophies and finished showpieces turned out to be something completely different. It was full of experiments, ideas, impossible challenges, and machines built just because he wanted to answer a question. Once he had complete control over what he worked on, he started building vehicles that many people considered completely insane. The racing projects that took turned his life around. If you want to understand what really drives Aaron Kaufman, you do not start with television, you start with racing. Because the moment cameras stopped dictating the schedule, he began pursuing some of the most demanding projects of his career because they challenged him in ways ordinary builds never could. One of the clearest examples was his obsession with the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. For anyone unfamiliar with it, Pikes Peak is not just another race. It is a 14-mile climb up a Colorado mountain with hundreds of turns and thousands of feet of elevation gain. drivers have very little room for error. One mistake can end a race instantly. His 1963 Ford Falcon became one of the most recognizable personal vehicles he ever built. It was not created for television ratings or customer delivery. It was built for competition, designed to climb a mountain as quickly as possible. And unlike many race cars that spend their lives hidden in trailers between events, this one reflected his philosophy perfectly. It was engineered to perform, tested in real conditions, and pushed to its limits repeatedly. What makes the Falcon important is not just what it accomplished, but what it revealed. The Falcon showed that he was also willing to put himself in the driver's seat and face the consequences of his own work. If something failed, there was nobody else to blame. If the vehicle performed well, it was because the engineering was sound. That level of accountability is rare, but the Falcon was only the beginning. Years later, he returned to Pikes Peak with something even more unusual: a heavily modified 1949 Ford F1 pickup truck known as Old Smoky. At first glance, it seemed like the kind of idea that should never work. Modern hill climb events are typically dominated by highly specialized race machines built around speed and aerodynamics. Aaron showed up with a vehicle based on a truck that first appeared generations before most competitors were born. The choice made no practical sense, which is exactly why it made perfect sense for him. Throughout his career, he has consistently been attracted to projects that force people to rethink what is possible. The challenge was never simply building something fast, but building something unexpected every single time. That same mindset led him into rally racing, off-road competition, and experimental vehicle development. Again and again, he chose environments where failure was possible and where success required learning entirely new skills. Looking back, there is a pattern within all of it. Every single major decision Aaron made after leaving Gas Monkey involved uncertainty. New businesses, new competitions, new forms of racing, and definitely new vehicles. While many people assumed he left television to find something easier, the opposite happened. He deliberately made his life more difficult. And once fans realized that, they started seeing his garage differently. It was beyond just a collection of expensive vehicles. It was a collection of challenges. But there was one project in particular that surprised even longtime supporters, involving a type of vehicle almost nobody associated with Aaron Kaufman at all. And this build would prove more how versatile he now was than most people ever realized. What was in Aaron's garage? By the time Aaron Kaufman had established himself as one of the most respected builders in the automotive world, most people thought they had him figured out. That was the image fans had built in their minds over the years, which is why one particular project caught so many people by surprise. It involved a Ferrari, not just any Ferrari either. A Ferrari AF12. For someone whose reputation had been built around American fabrication culture, the idea seemed completely out of character. The Ferrari world and the world Aaron came from are often treated as two entirely different universes. One is associated with exotic European engineering and supercars that cost more than most people's homes. The other is rooted in workshops, fabrication tables, custom trucks, and builders who spend their weekends covered in grease. On paper, they do not really seem like a natural fit. But Aaron has never approached vehicles through brand loyalty. He approaches them through engineering, and this distinction explains a lot. When he became involved in the twin-turbo Ferrari F12 project, it revealed something fans had not fully appreciated before. His skills were never limited to one type of vehicle. The same mindset that allowed him to transform classic Ford trucks could be applied to a modern Italian supercar. The finished product generated well over 1,000 horsepower, turning an already impressive Ferrari into something far more extreme. For many fans, it was the first time they had seen Aaron operate so far outside the automotive world they associated with him. But in reality, the Ferrari fit perfectly into a pattern that had followed him throughout his entire career. Again and again, he has chosen challenges that force him into unfamiliar territory. He raced at Pikes Peak because it was difficult. He chose to build rally cars because he had never built them before. He entered competitions where failure was a very real possibility. And after leaving Gas Monkey Garage, he continued making decisions that prioritized growth over comfort. Looking back now, that may be the biggest thing people discovered when they looked inside Aaron Kaufman's garage. The vehicles themselves are impressive. The Falcon, Old Smoky, the F-100s, and now the Ferrari. But those machines are really telling a much larger story. For years, television introduced Aaron as the talented builder standing beside Richard Rawlings. That version of him was real, but it was incomplete. The cameras showed what he built, not always why he built it. When he finally stepped away from the environment that made him famous, a clearer picture emerged. He launched a business centered around something he genuinely loved, pursuing racing projects that interested him personally. And perhaps most importantly, he continued learning long after he had already proven himself. That is why so many fans still respect him today, not necessarily because every project succeeded, as not every decision he took even made sense, but in all, he remained consistent. The same person who spent years teaching himself fabrication is still visible in the work he does now. The tools have changed. The audience has grown. The opportunities are bigger. So, was leaving Gas Monkey Garage the best decision Aaron Kaufman ever made? Or did it simply allow fans to finally see who he had been all along? And after seeing the projects that filled his garage, do you think Aaron was ever really chasing fame? Or was he always chasing the next challenge? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.